I think there's been many hundreds of years of systemic dysfunction that has kind of happened upon Indigenous people all over the world. Number of factors, forced assimilation and colonialism, and it's easy to draw examples from that. But there's hope in these efforts to revitalize and reestablish Ojibwe as a viable route to community wellness.
So I think if we take our parents' generation, they didn't have any of that. So this whole belief system we have, this whole cultural system and our language, it skipped a generation. For some communities, it skipped 2 generations. For some communities, it's people's great-grandparents that used to speak Ojibwe, not their grandparents. I think when we think about that, we're already sort of doing a victory lap. I think those Indian agents and those people who were negotiating against us in the beginning never would have thought in a million years that we'd be sitting right here, right now, still using our language. So I think that's a definite victory for our people.
When we look at some of the other programs worldwide that have been at it for a longer amount of time, they've expanded beyond high school, into college, down into preschool and birth programs that begin a cyclical feed of students coming through that, where they graduate, go on to college, come back to their communities, and then they put their kids in the program. So we're seeing some of that coming back around. That's what I would like to see, where we get to that point where it's a no-brainer for our communities because it's a quality education program. It's academically rigorous. It helps prepare students and citizens to be successful people and healthy people within their communities.
I was just talking to one parent this last week, and we've only had 3 or 4 weeks of school so far, and he's so excited because his son's singing songs at home, like while he's playing with his dinosaurs and Legos and stuff. He's singing to himself. This parent told me that he had learned some Ojibwe, and already his son is just far surpassing where he's at, and it's inspiring him to learn more. Now, this parent is coming to lunch with us at school and learning more Ojibwe when he comes over. I think a lot of parents get excited because they say, like, oh, I heard those words, when I was at my grandma's house or my great-grandma's house, and now my child is saying those words too. So that's an exciting thing for, I think, a lot of these parents.
So just the fact that we have kids these days who speak Ojibwe, we've already turned the corner. I think for years we talked about loss, and we've lost this and we've lost that, and we've just gone downhill. But I think we've turned the corner as far as generating new speakers, at least in some communities. So I'm really sort of optimistic about what the future holds. And I think if we instill enough of our cultural and spiritual teachings into these kids on the importance of our language, they're going to take it into the future and they're going to pass it on to their kids. I'm not sure if we'll ever see full-scale revitalization where everybody in the community speaks Ojibwe. It may not ever happen, but as long as we keep a sort of critical mass alive, our language will always be here and we'll always have that to assist us where we need it.
I guess I didn't understand as much when I was growing up. My mother was really adamant that we use different phrases, and we had vocabulary all over our house. Like next to the window, we had a list of all the birds that we might see out the window at the bird feeder. Or when we drove, she would have different vocabulary lists that we would go through. And we used to have people come over and study language when I was in middle school and high school, and I didn't really understand the importance of it until I went to college, and then I started getting that fire that people talk about, that passion and that feeling like I could make a difference by learning this and by helping other people to learn it, and together we could bring it back. And there's a whole movement that's going on, and once you join that, it's really inspiring and wonderful and energizing. And here right now, we've got all these people from all over that are part of that movement together, and there's just this great energy and excitement going on.
so far this has held the most promise about sustaining what we have as Ojibwe people. And it is incredibly fulfilling. It's exciting. It's filled with optimism. It's a restart on something that has kind of gone a little stale in terms of asking ourselves and being able to answer that question about what does our language and culture mean? What does studying Ojibwe do for me? I think it's moving it in a new direction and certainly expanding it through elements of our existence that we haven't had to do for a while, since the fires were burning hot in the civil rights days, and what gave rise to these people who pushed to have our language in our schools, but we're pushing to have our language as our schools, as our backbone of what we do. I think people who aren't engaged, if we can ask them to give this a chance,